Hello and welcome to Politics here on France 24. In 9 months, we'll know who the future president of France will be. The stage is nearly set. All the contenders have thrown their hat into the rings, and we have 3 experts around this table who will tell us who will win the race to the Élysée Palace. So with me on the set is Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, who's a columnist with the Sunday Telegraph, Stefan de Vries, correspondent with the Dutch TV station RTL 4, and Mathieu Douaret, who is with the Ipsos Polling Institute. So we now know who the main contenders and the major kingmakers will be for next year's presidential election. Let's begin this show with a quick rundown of the presidential field from the left to the right. So of the main ones, I should say. Not all of them have been included in the images you're going to see. On the left, there's first of all the candidate for the leftist front, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is hoping to garner the votes from the left, as it's known, and be first of all, a competitor to the Socialist Party, but eventually in the second round, his votes could add up with the Socialist. We then have, moving towards the center, the Socialist Party. They have, for the first time, an open primary. There are 5 major candidates. Well, I should say 2 major candidates. The party leader Martine Aubry, her predecessor François Hollande. Then there is Ségolène Royal, who ran last time in 2007, and smaller candidates, Arnaud Montebourg and Manuel Valls. We'll know the result of this primary in October. Then there is the Green Party, Europe Écologie Les Verts. They just held their primary, and the winner is Eva Joly, who's a former investigative magistrate, who's a Franco-Norwegian. It's the first time someone who has dual citizenship will run for president in France. They're hoping that they can garner some votes and eventually ally with the Socialists. Then there is the center, and there it's a big mystery because there are 3 potential candidates. Dominique de Villepin, former prime minister, Jean-Louis Borloo, who was until recently a minister for the conservative government, but is not anymore, and François Bayrou, who ran last time and was able to garner 18%. None of them have officially declared, and there's a mystery of who will jump in and who will be able to take the lead. And then it's getting simpler when you move towards the right. The ruling party, the UMP, he has not declared himself, but everybody knows Nicolas Sarkozy wants to win again and be in the Élysée for 5 more years. Finally, on the far right, Marine Le Pen has taken the succession from her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, and she will be a candidate, and she certainly hopes to be there in the second round. So now that we've set the stage, we're going to look at a few numbers, some polling numbers, one taken by Ipsos, which shows that in the first round, Martine Aubry would come ahead of Nicolas Sarkozy and Marine Le Pen. She would get 29% and 22% for Nicolas Sarkozy, which means those 2 would qualify for the second round. If the Socialist candidate is not Martine Aubry but François Hollande, we have a similar outcome. François Hollande will get 29%, Nicolas Sarkozy 22%, Marine Le Pen 17%. Again, the Socialists versus the Conservative in the second round. Before we get to Mathieu Douaret, who's with Ipsos and can comment this poll, there was another poll taken by a competing institute, CSA, which is interesting because it is the first one to show that actually Nicolas Sarkozy would come out on top in the first round. If Martine Aubry is the Socialist candidate, he would get 27% versus 25% for Martine Aubry. And if the candidate is François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy would be on equal footing with 26%, and Marine Le Pen with 16%. So now that you've had a flurry of numbers, I'm going to start with you, Mathieu Douaret. Those 2 polls show different scenarios. One, in the one you commissioned, the Socialist candidate would be ahead. In the other one, Nicolas Sarkozy would stand a real chance.
Yes. The first comment is that obviously there is a trend, an upward trend for Nicolas Sarkozy in any polls, in fact, because looking backwards, we will see that anyway, even in polls like ours where his figures remain low, he has been able to recover a little bit over the last 2 months.
But he couldn't go lower. I mean,
Obviously,
he was very low.
Yeah, probably. And the second fact is that what is now very obvious is the fact that Martine Aubry and François Hollande are performing approximately the same way on the first round at least. And the third fact is the stability of Marine Le Pen's figures, which have remained consistently at the same level over a month. And no major shift has happened yet on the far right. So obviously what happens now is that Nicolas Sarkozy is trying to recover, and the strange way, but obviously efficient way to do it, to perform it, is to remain silent. And obviously it works a little bit. What we have to keep in mind too is the fact that we are entering what we call in France the summer truce. And obviously this probably favors the incumbent candidate, because political passions ease during the summer holidays, and people are more conciliant, and the forces are, we measure the political forces get back to their average level, their historical levels during those periods of calm, and this is quite natural. That is to say that the right was probably a little bit underestimated during the spring because of discontent, even strong discontent on the right, and probably this discontent on the right eases up a little bit during the holidays, but autumn is traditionally a very tough period, and so Nicolas Sarkozy is maybe only waiting for facing more difficulties in the times to come.
Okay, Elisabeth Moutet, I imagine reading the CSA poll, the latest one, there must be smiles in the Élysée Palace, which haven't been there for a while because the president has been struggling mightily. This might be just one poll, but it is encouraging for the president.
It is very encouraging, and I should say that there have been smiles in the Élysée Palace since the 15th of May, when Dominique Strauss-Kahn was arrested in New York, and the great white hope of the left collapsed, and his candidacy collapsed. And this poll, which is of today, absolutely proves my point, which I think I made here at the time, is that people need time to process information that sort of changes the parameters of the game. So people said, oh, Strauss-Kahn is still very popular, and it lasted for a bit, but eventually, as people realized the enormity of what had happened, he was seen as completely finished for the campaign. And the left was not seen to be harmed, even though the strategists around Sarkozy at the Élysée were persuaded that this was durably harm the left. And I think we are just seeing the top of the iceberg. I think he will grow back in the polls because he's now giving this. He's got a whole sort of campaign plan. The campaign plan relies on this wonderful surprise for them that the left suddenly has nearly sort of pushed to fight him, a candidate who was more bling, had more bling around him than he ever had in his life, who had a private life, who was much more noisier than whatever was reproached to Nicolas Sarkozy, who was richer than, whose wife was richer than his own wife, and in general, every aspect of Sarkozy that was styled but that was heavily criticized is negated by the whole Strauss-Kahn thing. And then you see the rest of the left who are very embarrassed by the scandal and who do not know exactly how not to drop, or to drop, or perhaps to drop a little Dominique Strauss-Kahn, and they are seen as vacillating, as possibly, not, for the men they're seen as chauvinist, for the rest they're seen sort of driven by self-interest. And in general, you've got the image of people who do not, they haven't got a single issue, they haven't got a platform, what everybody thinks about as their candidate. So you've got the Élysée looking at this, thinking, all we've got to do now is, behave according to game plan. As game plan, as you said, is that the president doesn't speak too much, because he did speak too much. He doesn't blow his top anymore. He's Olympian. He is quiet. He's calm. His wife is pregnant. So we're going to, in October, to have this wonderful family images, if everything goes well. And I wish it goes well, of course, of the new happy parents. And it's going to be, they're really hoping to win this election. I think they have a fair shot at it.
But is Stefan de Vries, is this wishful thinking? Because just to refocus on the socialists, except for this latest poll, they're still ahead in the polls. And so Dominique Strauss-Kahn might be gone. He was the clear favorite. But they have two strong candidates, it would appear.
Yes, they do. And like Mathieu said, Sarkozy has been very discreet the last couple of months, the last two months actually, since Dominique Strauss-Kahn was arrested in New York. And he had held one press conference, which was not a very interesting press conference. So basically, shutting up pays back, and maybe that's something he should take into consideration for his campaign. Just being silent might win him the presidential election, but I think it's far too early to judge. I mean, it's all we still have 9 months to go. I remember we discussed here quite often the chances of a certain Dominique Strauss-Kahn as the would-be next president of the French Republic. Everybody knows what happened to him. So it's anything can happen, and it's summer holiday. It starts tomorrow, actually. Nobody will discuss politics anymore until September. Then there is the campaign for the primaries, for the socialist primaries, which will, of course, generate a lot of publicity, mainly
and
for
a lot of fighting.
A lot of fighting as well, but the people who will be most in the news will be the socialist candidates. So that could be good for the Socialist Party, because there will be a huge amount of media attention. And then there's another thing. I think the only real important thing is the economy. We see what's happening this week with Italy, with the euro. It's a big mess in Europe. Nobody knows actually where we're going, and I wouldn't be able to say where we are, where we will be standing in.
So is it
in
good
September.
for the incumbent in that case?
Yes, well, I think the only thing the French people are really interested in is in jobs creation, and if Sarkozy is able to show that he is capable of changing the economy to create jobs for the French public, then he will have a chance. Otherwise, I don't see it happening.
Right. Mathieu Doré, I want to ask, in the opinion polls, as Moutet just said, the slow poison of Dominique Strauss-Kahn has eventually got to him, because the majority of people do not want him to play a role in next year's election. But the idea that this would also hurt the Socialist Party, are you seeing any evidence of that?
Not really, because one of the first reasons why is that most of a significant number of the socialist sympathizers agree with the general idea that Dominique Strauss-Kahn should not come back to politics in France. And the reasons might be that they fear probably that it would damage the party's chances, which is probable for the time being. And one of the facts that is becoming clear now is that the Socialist Party doesn't really need Strauss-Kahn as much as was thought 1 year ago, I think. People realize that both François Hollande and now Martine Aubry are reliable candidates. And I think this is playing against Dominique Strauss-Kahn's chances to come back.
Obviously. And just to talk about the fact that we know on the left there is Jean-Luc Mélenchon on one side of the Socialist Party. Eva Joly, now on the other side, she won a primary against former TV star Nicolas Hulot. Is this good news for the Socialists, actually?
Well, you're forgetting one person on the left, at least 80% of that person's platform, and it's Marine Le Pen. Because what Marine Le Pen says about globalization, what she says about labor, what she says about the economy, what she says about going out of the euro is undistinguishable from what Mélenchon says. It's very interesting. You've got this a platform which is the extreme left and the extreme right together. it's, it's going to be interesting because at the end of the day, you have people in France who split the country in two different camps. They say, on the one hand, you've got on the center right or on the center left, you've got people who believe in Europe, who believe in globalization, who believe in a free trade economy. And on the other, you've got people who represent those citizens who feel that they have been cheated by capitalism and who are resentful and whose life has gone worse and whose income has gone worse and who sometimes are out of a job. And that's another element. And we don't know how much is going to split the Socialist Party. If you look at the candidates, the likely candidates in the second round, you've got on the Socialist side, you've got two, possibly three. You've got Ségolène. You've got three énarques, three graduates from the French government school, which has given this country many prime ministers, 3 presidents, and about 2/3 of the largest corporations' bosses. And this is seen as, it doesn't matter which party they're on, they're all together. It's seen by the public like that. On the other side, you've got Marine Le Pen, who's a sort of wild card, and you've got, to a large extent, Sarkozy, who campaigned the first time by saying, I'm not an énarque, I'm the son of an immigrant, I'm a very different animal. We don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but it's not finished. I don't think that the Socialist Party in itself has got many more fault lines than just the fault lines between personalities.
Stefan de Vries, just to come back to the Green Party, is it good news for the Socialists that it's Eva Joly who is going to be running for president?
I'm not quite sure because Eva Joly is, of course, pretty famous in France, but not for political reasons, but for the fact that she was a very well-known investigative judge who fighted corruption, so that might be a good case, actually. Then there are people who say, well, she's a foreigner, she's a Norwegian, we don't want a foreigner as a president. There's a problem with the Greens that they're not really united. They were united last year in 2009 with the European elections. They had extremely good results. Actually, they were the second party in a lot of regions, and they even beat the Socialist Party. So they had a very good starting point, but they have not been able to really capitalize on that position. The Greens have to show that they are really united now, and I'm not quite sure if they're capable in doing so. But if they are, then they are a threat to the Socialists, because I personally think that the Greens are a far more modern party than the Socialist Party, especially if you compare the French Socialist Party to all the other European socialist parties who have reinvented themselves and have become into something of a social democratic parties, whereas in France the Socialist Party is still stuck in the 19th century. And the Green Party is really a 21st century party. So if they are able to maintain this image, then they will pick a lot of votes of the socialists, but also I think of the more liberal conservative voters, because the Green Party is something that has a positive image and is optimistic, and that's something we see unfortunately far too less in French politics.
Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be right back to discuss the prospects of next year's presidential election here on Politics. Stay tuned.